everybody, and welcome to another reading vlog. It is, if you're wondering why I look very sleepy, it has just gone 6:30 in the morning. I have got up and I have put my gym clothes on and I'm about to head out to the gym. I am watching Sarah Y on her reading sprints at the moment. I think Reading with Neva is there, and also Leandra from Leandra TBR 0 to 0 is on. I'm sorry if I've got your channel names wrong, ladies, but Sarah Y has got some reading sprints with friends at the moment happening, so I thought this is a great time to start my new reading vlog and also get into the gym, and so I'm going to utilize that for 30 minutes of walking. And so it has just gone 35 minutes on her timer, so I'm going to quickly duck out to my gym and get at least, it'll be the first time I've been on the treadmill in a long time. So I'm going to go for 30, but I think I might only end up getting for 20. But I just wanted to check in with you to let you know that this is the start of a new reading vlog. We have started reading Bingo, and I was so surprised yesterday when I opened up my short, because I was out, and I'd had 213 views on my short for the start of the round. Thank you, everybody. I was so surprised by that, because normally I only get maybe 100 if I'm lucky, and so it was double the amount that I normally get, so that was very exciting. But in that, I said that I was going to read Book Lovers from Emily Henry. Now I am actually going to swap it out for You and Me on Vacation, because I have got a ton of stuff on this week and I'm not going to be able to sit down and read physical books that much this week. So I went on to Borrow Box, which you all know. I got Borrow Box. If I haven't talked about it, I actually signed up for Borrow Box this week, and this one was in my local library here as an audio book. So I'm going to each morning listen to this on audio out in the gym, because I thought that will I can't treadmill and read at the same time. I mean, I could try, but I'd probably end up splat frog in the wall behind me. So I thought, let's not risk that, because we're only just getting back into the gym after 2 years, after 7 years of not being in there. So I'm just like, I've still walked and stuff like that in the meantime, but I haven't used the gym since my granddaughter came to live with us, and now she's gone back to her mum a couple of years ago, and I've got myself all sorted. And I'm ready to get back in there, and I've had surgery and I'm 2 weeks post-surgery, so I can get back into the gym now. I was supposed to do it in March, but the surgery got moved around. But anyway, I thought, neither here nor there, I thought that kill two birds, exercise and read. So basically I'm going to start this morning, and while I'm on the treadmill, and I'll read that every day. So that just to let you know, full transparency, I've actually swapped Book Lovers out for You and Me on Vacation, because the prompt was to read a female author new to you. All right, I'm going to head to the gym, which is in my backyard, so I'm pretty lucky in that aspect. Yeah, it's not pretty, but it's serviceable. So let's head out and get some exercising done while listening to a book and being part of Sarah Y's reading sprints. Everybody, and welcome back. I am here to give my final thoughts on You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. Now, as you know, I swapped this out from Book Lovers to this one. This was a bingo prompt for this week, and the reason I ended up swapping it out, because I was super hectic and I found this one on Borrow Box on Audible, so on audio. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to switch it out. I'm still reading the same author because she's a new to me female author, and that was the prompt for this week. So it was a great book. I had a fun time reading this one. Now, this trope is a
friends to lovers, sorry, trope, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. So when you come across these friends to lovers, you know you're going to be in for a good time. Now, this is the first time I have read Emily Henry, and I can honestly say I really jived with her writing. It is a contemporary romance, and I know that that's not everybody's cup of tea, but every now and again I like to cleanse my palate from all the heavy stuff that I'm reading, all the thrillers and all that sort of stuff, and just have a fun time. And this book gave me that. So, as I said, it is a friends to lovers. So we already know how it's going to end, essentially. So you are there for the ride and the journey along with it. Now, I must say that Emily Henry, for me, she is really good at the banter. I really enjoyed the banter and the little the wit throughout it, and the humour and all that sort of stuff. I had lots of laugh out loud moments with this book as well. Just, you know, the things that she was thinking, and like her internal dialogue, and things that he was thinking, and the jumping and trying to cover each other up and all that sort of stuff. It was just fun. It was just a fun romance and a fun ride to go along with it. I've got a few more of her books on my shelf, and I'm looking forward to reading a few of them. I think I might leave them for a couple of months though, because I've got a couple of hectic months ahead of me, and she's got a new one coming out as well. I think I've got Beach Read and Book Lovers on my shelf along with this one, and I believe she's got another one coming out, and there was a couple of others. I think there's one other book of hers. So I am actually putting Emily Henry on to my automatic buy. Am I going to jam with all her books? Maybe not. I don't know. But if this is anything to go by, I'm really happy with this order. So I'm really happy that we had that prompt come up for a new female author to you. And yeah, I'm so glad that I read it. So what is my star rating? My star rating on this one is a 4-star. That's how much I had fun reading this. If you haven't read anything by Emily Henry and you're just looking for a fun time, I'm going to recommend this book to you, because this is great, especially if you like that friends to lovers trope as well. As I said, I don't often read too much of that, but it is always nice to slot one in every now and again. And as I said, Emily Henry is now on my automatic buy list, so that's exciting too.
So it is Tuesday the 18th of April, and I am on my last book for Aurelium. So the Wolf Border by Sarah Hall is what I'm starting tonight. I've set my timer. I'm going to do a couple of sprints on my own. I'm setting a timer and get some reading done while I've got the house to myself. My husband has a job very early in the morning, so he's stayed over at the workshop tonight, and Nerily is at work. So I thought, what a great time. I'm finished my work for the day. I'm going to sit down and get some reading in. Truth be told, I'll probably read until about 11 o'clock. It's 6:30 right now, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to reading this one. So a little bit about this book. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Do that light's a bit funky, isn't it? For almost a decade, Rachel has turned her back on her home, kept distant by family disputes and her work with wolves on the Idaho reservation. But now she is summoned back by the eccentric Earl of Annandale and his controversial scheme to reintroduce the grey wolf to the English countryside. She is back in the peat and the wet light of the Lake District. The return of the grey after hundreds of years harks back to the ancient ideal of untamed British wilderness and coincides with Rachel's own regeneration and gradual reconciliation with a strange family. But Rachel must also contend with public outrage, sabotage, and also scepticism of those close to home. And it just goes on. Set against a political tumult of Scottish independence, land reform, power, da-da-da-da-da. So it's going to be a bit of a different read. This one has been on my shelf for a while. I got it from the Book Grocer. Came in one of the Book Grocer boxes that I get from time to time. So I'm looking forward to reading it. It sounds very intriguing. It met the prompt for shape-shifting, which I had to have either the author's name had to have wolf in it, there had to be a picture of a wolf, or the title had to have wolf in it. And so I met two of those, which was there's a tiny, tiny little wolf in the background there, and wolf was in the title. So, yeah, I'm going to start reading it. As I said, I've set up a couple of little timers for me. I'm just using what I use on my sprints and do some 45-minute sprints by myself. I could have possibly got online, but I just felt like reading and not having to entertain or anything like that. Not that I'm very entertaining, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm going to get stuck reading into it, and I will check in after the first 45 minutes and let you know what I'm thinking about it so far. Okay, so I got to page 29. So far, I'm liking the story. She's basically left Idaho, and she's just met up with the Earl. He seems a bit of a a little bit of a flake sort of dude. He knew that she was coming and set up an appointment and everything, and then didn't show up for the appointment. So she was sitting there. The wording, the story is not even remotely started yet. That's just introducing the characters. And she's a zoologist. The main character is a zoologist, and she works with wolves in Idaho, which we knew that from the blurb. So, she's been called over there, and he's now basically taking her around the property and all that sort of stuff, and showing her where he wants to introduce the wolves to. But as I said, he seems a little bit flaky, sort of, a bit snobbish type. Not snobbish. Snobbish is not the right word. He just seems like he's just a bit flaky, and because he is an earl, he just does what he wants and disregards other people's feelings. Now, we've also been introduced to her mum, and her mum had a stroke 3 years ago, and she's living in a retirement village, nursing home, whatever the case may be, and she's allowed to stay there for 7 days free. So she's staying with her, and her mum is already on her case, like, why'd you get your hair cut? And then says, you look like a lesbian. It's just really rude to her and all that sort of stuff. And Rachel's trying not to get into it. She hasn't let her brother know that she's in the country or anything like that, although she thinks that her mum may have already told him. There is a lot of tension already between the mum and the daughter, even to the point of, like, she's staying there and they were bickering over who was going to use the bathroom first. Like, it didn't go into detail, but it just said, they were bickering over it. And so her mum is old and frail, but isn't relinquishing her authority over Rachel. And so I'm guessing that this is going to be a continuing plot line and whatnot. So, as I said, I am 29 pages in. Not a lot has happened. The writing is okay. I'm okay with the writing. It's a little bit flowery in some places, especially when she's talking about the wolves. And describing them and stuff like that. It's a little bit flowery. Not overly done, but just enough. And it's very good imagery. Like, when she's describing the eyes and all that sort of stuff, very good imagery is coming to my mind. So that's my thoughts on the Wolf Border for the first 30 pages. I'm going to continue on. I don't know if I'm going to totally like the book or not, but my standard is I give it to 100 pages. If I'm not feeling it at 100 pages, then I'll DNF it. But so far, so good. I'm enjoying it. It's not a super intriguing story at this point, but it never really is in the first 30 pages of something like this. we're just setting up for the characters and getting to know them a bit better, and who they all are and all that sort of stuff. And Rachel keeps thinking back to what's happening over in Idaho. Some tracking devices have broken and stuff like that, so she's quite worried about what's happening. And yeah, so there's a lot of that, and just the angst between her and her mother, and yeah, that's all that's really happened at this point. So I am going to read for another 45 minutes before I've got to pick up Neroli. She finishes at 8:30. It's just gone 7:30. So I am going to go and pick her up, and then I think I'm just going to call it a night and go to bed and continue on with this story tomorrow. All right, I'll check in when I've read some more. Hi, everybody. I am just checking in. I am still reading Sarah Hall's The Wolf Border. Basically, I'm about 61 pages in. Now, I don't really know, like, it's not a super fast-paced book, and there's not, the story's not super intriguing either, but something is just wanting me to keep turning the pages. Now, basically, we are, Rachel has basically, at the beginning of the book, was in England for a position with the Earl, who wanted to reintroduce the grey wolf back into the English countryside. The problem is it's right on the border, his property, of Scotland and England, and basically there are a lot of people that are really not happy about it. So Rachel went over there. She knew that she was going to turn the job down, and but she went there anyway to hear what he had to say. Apparently she is the leader in her field of study of the grey wolf and the care of the grey wolf and all that sort of stuff, and she was working on a reservation in Idaho. And so anyway, she went over and she ended up rejecting that and going back to the United States, and a whole heap of series of events happened, and subsequently she decided to take the job in England. So we went back to the United States, now we're back in England again, and now she's dealing with all of the protests and all that sort of stuff. There is a subplot happening with her family where she's had issues in the past and all that sort of stuff, and she's now just rekindled a relationship with her brother. And there's something, I'm a little bit like, normally I probably would have put this book down because it's not super exciting, but especially considering I've come off the tail of a couple of thrillers and all that sort of stuff. But I think I just need to read it through and just see where the storyline's going. I'm going to be pretty, like, there's one section of the book, that one plot line that's happening, and there was something was said between her and her brother, and I'm thinking, I think I know where this is going to go. So now my intrigue for the story is to see if I'm right. So that's why I'm reading it through to the end. It is starting to pick up a little bit. Like, as I said, we're 161 pages through the book. There's been a lot of setting up and everything, but there's still been that plot line of the wolves coming to the country and what they've got to do to make sure that they're all okay and that the public's okay and all that sort of stuff. So we're now just starting to really get into the political side of it. So we've got the activists that don't want it to happen, and then we've got the other people that do want to have it happen, although there's not a lot from the Earl side of the story and whatnot. He hasn't really been in the story. It's mainly been about Rachel and what's been going on with her.
So my final thoughts on this, it is a 3.5-star read for me. I actually really ended up enjoying this, and I'm glad that I didn't DNF it. If I had DNF'd it at 100 pages, I would have missed out on a really lovely story of a woman who had pretty much been emotionally abused by her mother and never thought much of herself of being a parent or anything like that. Now, we are following Rachel, who is in her 40s, I think she's 39 or 40, around that mark, and she is a wolf expert. So she's been called in, and I think I've covered this in the previous clips, but I'll give you a quick wrap up. She has been called in by the Earl of, I can't remember the name of it, Annandale. And Rachel is actually from this area, so she is a local to this area, and she's been called in by the wolf, by the Earl of Annandale, because he wants to set up a sanctuary and reintroduce the grey wolf back into England. They have been, I think the date they said was either 1608 or 1708 she used in here, was the last time a grey wolf was seen in the area. I don't know if that's a factual thing or not, because in the back of the book she says that it was all fiction. So, yeah, I don't know if that is actually a factual thing or not. So anyway, she has traveled. She was in America and she's very estranged from her family. She hasn't spoken to her brother in a long time. She hasn't really had much to do with her mother either. And so she, at the beginning of the book, she ends up going over to meet the Earl and rejects it, but then decides a few weeks later that, yes, she's going to take the position. Subsequently, she's gone to England and she finds she is pregnant. And so it is then sort of gone from the whole wolf story, which is a backstory, to her being pregnant and rekindling a relationship after her mother has passed away with her brother, and what that all entails and all that sort of stuff. So I actually really ended up enjoying that part of the story. Like, at first I thought, there's a bit of a subplot, and I don't want to say because it is a spoiler. Like, there's a subplot there between her brother and his wife, and I thought maybe that something was going to happen there, but it ended up not being anywhere near that. So, like, it took a bit of a turn. So I really ended up thoroughly enjoying the storyline. Now, I was just reading this at first, and then I got onto Borrow Box and went, I wonder, and I put it in and it came up. So the second half of the book, I ended up, I think from page 160 or something, I ended up having the audio. So I was able to really get immersed into the story. Now, because there was a couple of plot lines happening in this, it was a little bit jarring at times because it was like flipping backwards and forwards, but not overly so. Once I got into the audiobook, it was a lot easier to follow along with, but I was somewhat distracted in the first half of the book. So that was a me thing, not a book thing. Now, Sarah Hall has great, her writing was just invoking so much imagery for me, especially around the landscape and the wolves and how they were perceiving things, and how she was perceiving what they were going to do and all that sort of stuff. And then there was the lovely story of her with her baby and all that sort of stuff. There wasn't there was a couple of sex scenes in it, but they're not overly explicit or anything like that. And there was no real swear words that I remember. I think the only there was the slang term for male genitalia in it. So that was really the only stuff like that was in there. So that, you'll be fine if you've got any problem with that. It's very limited. You're not going to be exposed to a lot of it, so to speak. Okay, so and then there's that her trying to build the life back with her brother now that her mother is out of the picture. Her mother was very judgmental and all that sort of stuff, and very emotionally abusive towards Rachel. And her brother left home at a very young age because he couldn't deal with it anymore. So there's a whole story happening there with him and all that sort of stuff, and it just interwove together really, really well. And then towards the end of the book, there was another part of the book where something happened with the wolves, and it turns out that, yeah, I can't say anymore because if I say that, it's going to give it away. Really good book. I thoroughly enjoy it. It is not something that I would normally read. When you get some of these prize-winning books or shortlisted books and stuff like that, they are contemporary or literary, and so sometimes they can be a bit hit and miss for me, but this wasn't. I actually really enjoyed it. So I'm glad that the book grocer sent this to me in my box, because it wouldn't have been something that I picked up. Like just reading the blurb, it wouldn't have been something that I would have taken home from a bookstore. So I'm really happy that I got to read this. Now, there are 433 pages in it. It is somewhat of a long book, and there was probably some of the stuff in there really didn't need to be in there, but it did add to the story in the end. That's sort of my general feeling along the way. And the audio, I got on Borrow Box, and the narrator was pretty good in that as well. Her pacing was really good. I didn't have to speed it up too much, which was great. And so her pacing was really good, and she was very easy to listen to. The only other thing was sometimes I got confused when, because like you're getting told the story, but then there was also dialogue thrown in there as well, and that was a little bit jarring. And the other negative of the book is that there is actually no chapters, although there are stars for chapter breaks, but this is in parts. And I believe the parts are, they're named, and I can't think of like, so the first one, I think, let me just get to it. The first one is Old Country, and then it'll go, and then it's like that goes for a while, and then it was Everything Tends Toward Iron, which was a favourite quote of hers, and then it just goes on there. So you've got these breaks, but then you've got like part breaks, but then you've got these little stars that break it up. And listening to the narrator, like I didn't pick that up when I was reading the book, but listening to the narrator, she actually stops at those stars, it takes a breath, and then starts on. So it's like a chapter break, and it's not jarring or anything like that. That's just how the narrator ended up doing it. Unfortunately, I don't have it up in front of me, so I can't actually tell you who the narrator was, but she actually did a really good job. Hang on, I will just bring that up. I'll see if it's on Audible and see if I can't bring it up on there, because it's a Belinda, it's on there. It's a Belinda, Louise Brearley, that's right, because I recognise the name from The Silent Patient. So she's done a really, really good job. And this was released in 2015. Yeah, it's a Belinda audio on Borrow Box, but on Audible it says only from Audible, but it's not only from Audible. Bit of a marketing fib there, Audible. But yeah, I ended up giving this a 3.5 star, if I haven't already said that. Thoroughly enjoyed the story, and if you like that sort of stuff and you like being immersed into a story, this is definitely going to pull you in there. And that's it for the Wolf Border and for my Aurelium reads. So I'm finished that in the month of April, so I don't have to think about Aurelium until August now, which is great. I'm glad that I got them all done. But I am going to head off and do some crafting, and I don't know what my next book is that I'm reading. So I will check in just a moment, and I will let you know. Everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I am here to do my wrap up of The Silent Patient. I didn't do any check-ins for this. I absolutely just fell into this story. So how did this book end up on my TBR? This book ended up on my TBR because each month on my Discord I do a members spin. So I put up a post asking everybody who wants to be involved to put their name up, to tell me what their favourite genre is, or you can change it as well. Even if you've been on there for a couple of months, you can change the genre if you want to. And so basically each month we do that on the 20th and I spin it, and then whoever it lands on is the person that picks the book for that month. So this month it was Chrissy _Stitches and Reads on Instagram, and she picked The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Now, I did not have this on my bookshelf, and nor did I have it in on my Kindle, and I'm really wishing that I did have it in the physical copy, because it was an absolutely fabulous book to listen to, and I would have really liked to read it as well. I do like to read along with some books like that. All right, so The Silent Patient is a psychological thriller. And basically it is following the story of a woman who killed her husband, and she shot him in the face several times, and she's ended up in a psych ward. And we are getting told the story from the perspective of her therapist. Now, she has not spoken since that night when she killed her husband. Now, I cannot really talk too much about this book without giving too much away. So I'm just going to give you my general feelings of it. Now, as I said, I listened to this on audio. And I've got the page up here. Who is it? Louise Brearley and Jack Hawkins are the narrators of this book, and they did a fabulous job. The book goes for 8 hours and 32 minutes, and it was released in February of 2019. The publisher is Orion, and on Audible, it has a 4.5-star rating. Now, I would have to agree with that rating. I have actually given this a 4-star rating. And I so fell into it. That's why there's no check-in. There was no, oh, this is the next book that I'm reading or anything like that, because I just fell into this book and forgot all about the rest of the world. It kept me captivated from the get-go. The narrators did a really good job of narrating it. Sometimes when you get, you've got 2 characters in a book and you've got 2 different narrators, sometimes it can be a little bit jarring. This was done seamlessly. It was just absolutely perfect. And if you want to listen to something, I also listened to this at 1.75 speed, so I was able to just get it done in a day because that brought the time right down on it. It would be a really good story to listen to if you were traveling. If you had a long ride, you would be enthralled with this. The time would just melt away for you. It was that good. That's how happy I was. Now, I've actually on Audible given the narrators a 5-star rating. The overall book and story only gave 4-star. Just because there wasn't any reason why. It just wasn't an absolutely phenomenal book. Like for my 5-star ratings, they have to be phenomenal books. But anyway, this was close to it. Like, just sitting here thinking about it a little bit further, I could probably up that to a 4.5, maybe even a 4.75, because just thinking about my general feelings and how I felt and all the rest of it. And I think if I had have had the physical book, it probably would have been, because I would have been reading along with it or just reading it. And I think that would have been a much more better experience. But even still, this was absolutely a great book. I've actually even recommended it to my husband. He doesn't often do thrillers very often, but every now and again when I come across a really good thriller, I'll throw it his way, especially if it's a bit of a shorter book. And so he'll log into my thing and he'll listen to it. So, so that is pretty much all I'm going to say about it. As I said, it's a great, compelling premise behind it, because you've got, a woman that's murdered her husband and she hasn't spoke. And I believe it's like 5 or 6 years that she hasn't spoke. And then you've got this therapist that's come in and he wants to help her. He thinks he's the one that is going to be able to help her. So that whole premise, setting it up, brilliant. And then we got to the end of the book and I'm like, oh my God, that was such a great twist. Like, I had, through the book, there was a couple of times I thought, is this no, is it going this way? Is it going that way? There was just a couple of times that I got a little bit thrown off the track, so I wasn't 100% sure. So, so that's always a fun read when the author manages to throw you off the track. As I said, had I read this in the physical, I think it would have been a 5-star read for me. Just the order, even though the narrators, I've given them 5-star, that I think overall there was something a little bit lost, but still a great read, a great listen to. So that's all I'm really going to say on that. And so that is now wrapping up this reading vlog for this week. So I do hope that you've enjoyed listening to all the things that I have read this week and seen the little snippets of what's been going on in my life in the background. As always, don't forget to give me a thumbs up down below and maybe think about hitting that subscribe button too. That is it from me today. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And as always, keep turning those pages and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.